Violence, rape, harassment, and sexual abuse are not isolated crimes committed by a few bad people. They are deep social problems that grow from a mix of psychology, culture, power, silence, and failure of systems meant to protect people. Many ask whether there is a true solution to violators, rapists, and harassers, or whether humanity must accept these acts as unavoidable. The reality is uncomfortable but important. These crimes may never disappear completely, but they can be greatly reduced if society understands why they happen and actively works to prevent them rather than reacting only after damage is done. At the core of most sexual violence is not attraction or love but power and control. Many offenders are driven by a desire to dominate another person, to feel superior, or to release anger and frustration. When someone feels powerless in their own life, whether because of failure, rejection, poverty, or emotional emptiness, they may try to reclaim power in destructive ways. Sexual violence becomes a tool, not an impulse. This is why it often happens even when consent is clearly absent and resistance is obvious. Upbringing plays a huge role in shaping this mindset. Children learn what relationships look like by watching adults around them. A child who grows up seeing violence at home, disrespect toward women, emotional neglect, or rigid gender roles may internalize these behaviors as normal. If boys are taught that crying is weakness and anger is strength, they may grow into men who cannot process emotions safely. If girls are taught to stay quiet, obey, and tolerate discomfort, they may grow up believing their boundaries do not matter. These early lessons silently shape adult behavior. Culture and media further reinforce harmful ideas. Movies, music, social media, and online content often sexualize aggression, normalize stalking, and turn harassment into humor. When repeated often enough, people stop questioning it. Jokes about assault, comments blaming victims, or content that objectifies bodies all slowly reduce empathy. This does not turn someone into an offender overnight, but it lowers the psychological barrier that says, "This is wrong." Psychology also matters deeply. Some offenders lack empathy or have learned to disconnect from the pain of others. Some carry unresolved trauma, childhood abuse, rejection, or humiliation. Others struggle with mental health conditions that affect impulse control or emotional regulation. While none of this excuses violent behavior, ignoring psychological roots makes prevention impossible. Treating sexual violence only as a crime, and not also as a psychological and social failure, limits real solutions. Although most cases statistically involve men harming women, it is important to acknowledge that women can also commit sexual violence against men. These cases are heavily underreported because male victims are often ridiculed, disbelieved, or told they should feel lucky rather than violated. This silence causes long-lasting emotional damage and reinforces the false idea that sexual violence only moves in one direction. In reality, anyone can be a victim, and anyone can be an offender. This is why the issue must be treated as a human problem, not a gender war. Real-world examples show that systems make a difference. In societies where consent education begins early and is taken seriously, rates of sexual violence are lower. In countries where police are trained to handle cases sensitively and courts act quickly, offenders are less likely to repeat crimes. In contrast, where victims are blamed, cases are delayed for years, or justice systems are corrupt or indifferent, violence becomes normalized. When offenders see that consequences are weak or non-existent, they feel protected by silence. Education is one of the most powerful long-term solutions. Teaching children about bodily autonomy, respect, boundaries, and consent helps create safer adults. Consent education should be clear and simple. No means no, silence is not yes, and pressure is not permission. Boys must learn that strength includes empathy and self-control. Girls must learn that their voices matter and that discomfort is a valid reason to say no. Education should also continue into adulthood through workplaces, universities, and public campaigns. Law enforcement and justice systems must also improve. Punishment alone does not heal society, but accountability is necessary to prevent repeat offenses. Investigations must be fast, fair, and sensitive to survivors. Long delays, victim shaming, and hostile questioning often cause more trauma than the crime itself. When justice feels unreachable, people stop reporting, and offenders continue harming others. Supporting victims is equally important. Sexual violence does not end when the incident ends. Survivors often live with fear, anxiety, depression, trust issues, and shame for years, sometimes for life. Many struggle in relationships, work, and self-worth. Society often focuses only on the crime itself and ignores the lifelong impact. Survivors need counseling, medical care, legal help, and, most importantly, belief and dignity. Healing should never be treated as optional. Cultural change is essential for real progress. Harassment must stop being dismissed as flirting or jokes. Victims must stop being blamed for clothing, behavior, or lifestyle. Communities must stop protecting abusers simply because they are powerful, famous, or familiar. Men, especially, play a critical role here. Calling out harmful behavior among friends, challenging sexist jokes, and refusing to stay silent can prevent harm before it happens. Silence does not mean neutrality, it often means protection for the wrong person. Life experience shows how deep this issue goes. Survivors often carry invisible scars that affect every part of their lives. Families suffer, trust breaks down, and fear spreads through communities. At the same time, some offenders were once victims themselves, showing how cycles of abuse form when trauma is ignored. Breaking these cycles requires early intervention, mental health support, honest conversations, and courage to confront uncomfortable truths. In the end, there is no single law, punishment, or speech that can end sexual violence. The solution lies in long-term effort through education, empathy, accountability, mental health care, and cultural responsibility. A world without violence may be unrealistic, but a safer world is possible. When society chooses to listen instead of dismiss, act instead of ignore, and prevent instead of only punish, real change can happen. That is how fewer lives are broken, and fewer people grow up to cause harm.